PDF file? Anyone? Okay. I know you guys, yeah,
Only
right.
one? Only one person uses Adobe?
Right. Who's opened up a PDF file? PDF file? PDF, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, right, you guys have used PDF even though you may not know it. If you have Adobe at home, make sure that it's updated with the latest version because there's a lot. That's one of the biggest applications with vulnerabilities. Okay? So when you look at statistically what has these malicious actors used to inject viruses and malware into your computer, they've used applications like Adobe, Adobe Flash, even Microsoft Word and Excel. They could carry malicious viruses that could install into your computer. So that's something that you gotta kind of be conscious about. You know, make sure you're updating that, and that's free. You know, Windows updates for free. You don't have to pay for that, and these are simple steps you can take. The one other thing that I do, or I do a few other things, but how many here has more than like 3 devices, like 3 mobile devices at home? 3 or 4? Okay, like you have a cell phone, a tablet, a computer. Then you have family and friends that have their own cell phone. So at some point, you have a whole network at home, and you don't even realize it, right? You have a printer at home. It might be a smart printer. Okay, so how do you keep everything updated without really worrying about it? So what we use, and what many businesses use, is what's called a management, like a multi-device management software. There's different softwares out there. They do the same thing, and the idea is that if you subscribe to it, it'll link to each and every one of your device, and it'll tell you on an interface which one has what operating system or what version that is, and which one needs to be updated. Some of these softwares also updates it automatically for you. Like you have to pay for this service, and you have to subscribe to it. It's a little bit, it's not too expensive, but it's worth it because you have a software doing the work for you. You're not worrying about it, and you know it's getting done. If you don't, then you have to manually check. You know, you have to ask your mom, let me see your cell phone. Oh, I gotta update it. And that's time off your hands, you know. So if you don't want to do that, and you have a lot of devices at home, you know, I would suggest getting software that can manage all your devices at home. That's something that we do. It lets us do other important work while we let the computers and software do most of that manual work. Okay. One of the other things that we do, it's not very it's not high speed or anything. It's called inventory management. Has anyone here thrown away their cell phone or company and computer and just thrown it into the garbage? Okay. Anyone else here?
What do you do when you need to get a new cell phone? What do you do with the old one?
You throw it away though? You just keep it? Or you just
You exchange it. You give it to somebody, they give you a new one.
How about your computer? Do you just exchange that too? Or do you throw that into the garbage? Like an old computer? Oh, okay. So the idea is that when you do, you want to make sure that it's securely destroyed, right? Because there's little computer memories in there that stores some of your sensitive information. Right? If you have a laptop right now and you're about to sell that or give it away, make sure you remove the hard drive and figure out a way to destroy that hard drive because that hard drive could contain your banking information, your personal medical records, anything in there could have been saved. You don't want to just give that information away to the business or your friends because you never know where it'll end up. So that's something we do. Before we sell or auction our old computers, we get rid of these computer hard drives and make sure that it's destroyed at the proper place. Okay. One other thing I want to talk about for passing on the baton is you really have to balance risk and tolerance. Now, some of us use our mobile device just to do social media, watch videos, and that's fine. If you feel like that's all you do with it, then you don't really need much protection, right? Because if it's compromised, you just reset it back to the default. But let's say you have something important there. You do work with your cell phone. If you have sensitive information, you don't want it leaked in the social media, right? So what you want to do is you want to buy an antivirus software. There's a lot of companies out there that provide antivirus software for your mobile devices. Just like your computer, your mobile device is vulnerable to all these malware. And because you use it more, probably more than a regular computer, I would say, right? 'Cause I know I do. I put more value into protecting my cell phone. And the other thing too is if your cell phone is compromised and you use it to connect to your computer, now you've just compromised your computer because you're passing on the virus, malware, or anything bad into another device. And vice versa. You don't want to just connect your cell phone to any computer because that same crossover threat could pass into your cell phone. So just keep that in mind. If you ever charge your cell phone to a computer, you might want to buy an adapter that can plug straight into the wall. So it helps. It's just another way of protecting your device, whether it's a computer or a cell phone. Okay. And the other thing I want to mention is that there's a lot of free pirated software out there. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, you download it, it's free from the internet, and it acts the same, right? It's a free Microsoft Office. You're like, oh, it's free, I can use it. The problem is that that free software could bring in viruses, ransomware. You guys know what ransomware is? Has anyone heard of that term? First time you heard it? Okay, so ransomware what it does is it'll encrypt all your files. Let's say you work for the banking company and you open up an email and in it is a ransomware. It infects your computer. And what it does is it'll encrypt all your files you need, and then what they'll end up doing is you'll end up having to pay those people to decrypt your files. So there's that risk to pay them, but there's no promise that they'll decrypt it for you. So you really got to be careful about what you do when you skip email from someone you don't know. If it looks suspicious, I wouldn't open it. I wouldn't click the link. Okay? Just be mindful of who sends you an email and what that email is. That's about it.
No, just perfect. So they've talked about the they talk about how cybersecurity works. I work in the economic section. I don't know nearly as much about computers as you do today. I'm going to talk about policy, why the United States cares about cybersecurity policy, the relationship between the U.S. government and the Vietnamese government working on policy issues and not on our day-to-day operations, which are very important. What they do makes my job possible. Without computers that are safe and that work every day, I can't do my job at all. I just sit at my desk. Okay. So first off, my name's Kevin. I work in the economic section of the embassy. Does anybody know what the economic section does? I will explain. We have sort of three big jobs in the economic section. First off, we report. We learn things about the economy of Vietnam, and we tell people back in Washington, D.C., so that the people who make policy in our government know what is happening in Vietnam and can make better decisions. So we go and we talk to your government, we talk to people in the private sector in Vietnam, we talk to people at universities, and we talk to people like you. We learn about what is happening in Vietnam, in particular in the economy, and then we tell Washington so they can make good decisions. That's the first job, reporting. Second job is advocating. Once we tell Washington what is happening, they come up with policies. They come up with ideas, things that they want to accomplish in Vietnam. And then it's our job to go to the Vietnamese government, or in some cases go to the Vietnamese private sector, and we help convince the Vietnamese government that they want to do the things that we want to do. We help get our government and your government on the same page so that we can accomplish the things we want to accomplish. And then the third thing that we do is help find ways to cooperate with your government. We learn what your government's priorities are and find ways to bring our two governments and sometimes our two peoples closer together. So we report, we advocate, and we cooperate. Okay? Now we have a lot of people in the economic section because the Vietnamese economy is very interesting, especially right now, because the Vietnamese economy is growing so fast and it's so robust in the so we have a lot of people working in the economic section, and we look at different issues. One of the issues that I look at is cybersecurity and cyber policy. Why do we care about cyber policy in Vietnam? Anybody have any ideas? Well, you don't get to talk. First off, we care about cyber policy because we care about the development of the Vietnamese economy. A quickly growing Vietnamese economy is good for the United States. It's mutually beneficial. The bigger the Vietnamese economy is, the more stuff you can buy from us, and the more stuff we can buy from you, right? And one of our primary missions in the economic section is to increase the trade between our two countries. And we see a strong cyber sector around the world, especially in the modern global world. Without a strong cyber sector, the United States around the world, it's very difficult to grow, right? So enhancing the cyber sector is a foundation for the rest of the growth of the Vietnamese economy, especially as Vietnam tries to move up what we say the value chain. You know what the value chain is? Okay. The value chain is you move from producing less valuable, easily produced goods, mass manufactured goods, to more and more sophisticated, more and more profitable products, right? And to move up this value chain, it's important that you have this fundamental, this foundation of a strong cyber sector and technology sector. Also having a strong technology sector, strong cyber infrastructure helps attract foreign investment, right? Without a strong and safe internet, foreign companies are going to maybe look at other countries to do business because they know that strong and safe internet is very important to do business. So they're going to find the countries to invest in that have that strong and safe internet. So it's important that Vietnam has that in order to convince companies like Samsung to come here, in order to convince companies like Google or Microsoft to come to Vietnam. So that's the first reason why we think the cyber sector is so important. The second reason we think the cyber sector is important for me to cover is because right now Vietnam is very vulnerable. It's a very big country, right? 100 million people in Vietnam. Almost everybody has a cell phone. Many people have computers. And not only do people have all of these devices, but more and more people are getting devices. It's one of the fastest growing countries in terms of connectivity to the internet. So we see huge numbers of people buying these devices and getting connected to the internet. But as I think Paul mentioned, many people are using unlicensed software. I saw some hands, right? So they're using this software, because it's free, but it is less protected, right? A lot of it maybe includes viruses because you're downloading it from people who are maybe not very trustworthy, right? And more importantly, even if it doesn't include these viruses, if the person getting it is trustworthy, you can't patch it, you can't upgrade it. It doesn't come with the automatic upgrades unless it's licensed. And so when the company, let's say Microsoft, okay, if you have an unlicensed copy of Windows, Microsoft, when it discovers a new problem with Windows, a new vulnerability with Windows, if it's unlicensed, you can't get the upgrade, and so you can't protect yourself from that. Now, because there are so many of these unlicensed pieces of software in Vietnam, there are many, many, many vulnerable computers. And so we see Vietnam as one of the, we say, biggest vectors of malicious code, malicious software. That is, because there are many, many unprotected computers here, this is where the viruses come to live. It's maybe not Vietnam making the viruses, but it's a good place for them to come and sit, and then from Vietnam, from these unprotected computers in Vietnam, they can attack other computers, including computers in the United States. So it is in our interest, it is in America's interest, to help Vietnam address this security problem. Because if we address it here, we solve our problem as well, right? It is, again, I don't know very much about computers, but the smart people who do know about computers say it's very much like a global health problem. If you want to address a disease, you address it in the same way as you address these computer problems. That is, you go to where the infection is the biggest. You go to where the infection starts, and if you solve it there, then you solve it everywhere, right? So that is the reason why we look at Vietnam as a big priority for us in terms of cybersecurity. We also have a lot of different interests in cybersecurity. We have law enforcement interests. If we need to prosecute somebody, or if we need to arrest somebody who has maybe stolen some intellectual property, coordinating between the people who do cybersecurity in the United States government and the people who do cybersecurity in the Vietnamese government is important. We have law enforcement interests. We have counterterrorism interests. We have trade interests. Building this cybersecurity and bigger cyber infrastructure is very important to helping on a lot of different levels of U.S.-Vietnam relations. And there are many stakeholders in the United States who are very interested in working on this. So what is the United States doing right now to cooperate with Vietnam, and what are both the United States and Vietnam doing to cooperate? First off, through me and many of my colleagues, we're watching very closely as Vietnam develops new legislation and new procedures, new laws that govern how the cyber environment runs. This will, we are especially looking at laws that protect intellectual property, so that you can't, let's say, download American movies, the movies that Hollywood makes, or American TV shows, or you can't stream American TV shows for free, right? We want American businesses to be able to earn money off of off of the intellectual property that they produce. We're also looking at laws that allow, or that convince the business community, American businesses, to invest in Vietnam. They want to see that there are strong laws that will protect their intellectual property, but that will allow them to do business without maybe too many regulations, right? So we are working with the Vietnamese government to help find laws that enable American businesses to invest here. And we're also looking at watching to see those laws, while they are enhancing security, are also protecting freedom of expression. It's very important. It's one of the key core American values that we be able to express ourselves freely without fear of prosecution. For my first tour, I was in China. We can't use Facebook in China. We're very happy that Facebook is not only can you use Facebook in Vietnam, but everybody uses Facebook in Vietnam, right? Who has a Facebook account? Almost everybody, right? And almost every business has a Facebook account too, right? It would be very difficult to do business in Vietnam without Facebook. And I think that's a very good sign, because it also helps people. Not only does it help people do business, but it also helps people connect freely and express ideas freely. That's a good thing. But we do have some concerns, which I think everybody has seen the U.S. government talk about freedom of expression. So we want to help make sure that any new laws in Vietnam protect the freedom of expression. So that's the legislation that we are watching closely. We are also looking to expand the cooperation on cybersecurity between our two governments. Up until now, that cooperation has been very limited. Usually it was on a case-by-case basis. If there was a big incident in Vietnam, or there was a big incident in the United States that had a connection to the other country, somebody would pick up the telephone, call the government, and for one incident, we would cooperate, but then between incidents, we didn't really do too much. If there was a law enforcement issue that we had to talk about, we would work for that one issue and then stop. Recently, President Obama passed what is called PPD 41. That's Presidential Policy Directive 41. This was a global policy that said, we want to expand the United States government coordination with all countries around the world on our response to cyber attacks and cyber incidents. We did this because over the last year and a half, 2 years, there were some very big cyber attacks in the United States. Maybe you read about some of them, maybe you didn't. It's okay, but they were similar to the attack that happened at the airports here in Vietnam. Okay, you remember how when that happened in Vietnam, all of a sudden everybody started talking about it, right? There were a lot of stories in the media, and it was a conversation that everybody was having. The same thing happened in the United States, but just a little bit before. And because of that, the president passed this new policy directive. It said, we want to direct U.S. diplomats around the world, in every country, to expand coordination between the countries that they're working with. So, like I said, the coordination between the United States and Vietnam was very limited before, and now we're looking for new ways to coordinate. This is a very new policy, so we haven't found those ways. So we are looking for more ways to coordinate. We are looking for ways that will both enhance security while at the same time protecting that freedom of expression that I talked about before. I don't think we have found those ways yet, but every day we have conversations with different ministries in the Vietnamese government to find things that the Vietnamese government is interested in, and that the United States is also interested in, and seeing where those two things overlap so that we can help each other and make not just the Vietnamese internet safer, but the global internet safer. So that is my big mission for the next year. I think that's pretty much all I have prepared, but I'd like to hear some of your questions on policy, and I hope you have questions for my colleagues here. But thank you for listening.
One thing, let's cover really quickly the definition of cybersecurity. Roughly, for the U.S., we define it as confidentiality, so the ability to be able to be protected when we say things, or be able to keep that information out of the group of folks. It's an integrity, that it's honest information, kind of when it's going back and forth. Access, so we need to make sure that we always have access to information in cybersecurity and kind of defending against that and keeping that resiliency there. And then non-repudiation, I can't even pronounce the English word.
Non-repudiation.
Thank you. Which really has, so you send me something or you connect up, it's my ability to know that that's you who's connected up to me. So that's loosely kind of what cybersecurity is defined in our aspect at the operational level. And then as you've seen, that plays out in policy, that plays out at the very working level, all those kind of definitions. But just to kind of give a heads up, America, we still kind of sway back and forth what the definition of cybersecurity is. And it's changing. If we look at what it was 20 years ago and what it is today, it's gotten more connected, more critical to everybody's environment. We kind of accept that. So let's go ahead and open it up to questions if you guys have any questions. Anything else we could answer for you on the cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity policy or cybersecurity practical stuff? How to keep your computers and your systems safe?
Just as our side is really complex, his side, I don't want to get into that. That whole policy thing is frightening. Zeros and ones.
We got one.
I want to ask you that if they big incident related to cybersecurity, what the UN government tell us about cybersecurity?
Sure. So the question is, if there's a cyber incident in Vietnam, how can the U.S. government help? What can we do to help? The answer is it depends. It depends on the nature of the incident. It depends what the problem is. If, for instance, the attack on Vietnamese systems comes from the United States, we can help from our law enforcement officers might be able to help. They can help find the people who launched the attack, or they can help find the servers, the computers in the United States that it came from. So in some cases, we can help directly respond to the attack and maybe stop the attack if it is still happening. If the attack is coming from somewhere else, we have a lot of advice to offer. We have a lot of experts who've been doing this for a very long time. And we have some of the smartest people in the world. We have great universities and people who have been working on these issues for a very long time. And so even if the attack isn't coming from the United States, often we can offer very good advice. Now, in order to do that, we can't offer advice without knowing what the problem is. So it helps when the people who are responding to the attacks in Vietnam and the people who usually respond to attacks in the United States have connections that are already built, right? When an attack happens, you don't want to pick up the phone and not know who to call, right? You want to be able to say, oh, I've met Kevin before. I know Kevin knows all of these things about how to respond, and he has advice on how I can help or how he can help. I'm going to call him. So mostly it is offering advice, but it depends on what the attack is. I wish I could be. I wish I could be a little more specific, but I don't know enough about computers, so I will hand this over.
One thing we can say is actually the relationship has been good and improving between Vietnam and America on that. So if Vietnam defines what the problem is, it's beneficial for both Vietnam and the U.S. to help. We want to help Vietnam on the cybersecurity. And I think there's an example in 2013, I think, which the U.S. was having a problem because of some things that were happening in Vietnam. It wasn't Vietnam, there was another country who had taken over a bunch of the computers. They were vulnerable computers. They were called botnets. And those computers were being used.
Does everybody know what a botnet is?
Okay. Botnet. It's when kind of a malicious code has taken over your computer. You may not even know it's running. That little piece of code there is able to be controlled by somebody else. And they can do it across thousands, if if not millions, of computers. We won't say who is very good at using botnets, but we'll say that you go online and you happen to get an email and it has a little attachment. It may do nothing on your computer, but it just kind of sits there and waits until somebody gives it a command to do something. Well, in 2013, about 10,000 of those botnets were being used to attack America. And America reached out to Vietnam and said, hey, can you help us? And Vietnam, oh yeah, not a problem, we'll take care of it. And they were able to really quickly assist us in a way that we couldn't actually do in America. So that kind of, where the relationship is, it's kind of like you mentioned, it's good to have that contact first, that trust with that other person, but we're really moving in that direction.
There used to be a time when we Vietnamese people had no access to Facebook. Because the government put up a firewall to prevent it from having access to that. Then they justify that action by saying that they have the reason that they didn't want it to be exposed to controversy. Then what do you think about the suppression, information suppression, and have it ever have anything like that happen in the U.S. where the government tries to prevent these from accessing to those kinds of information?
Well, I mean, it is the policy of the United States government that one of our fundamental beliefs in the United States is that everybody should have the freedom to express themselves however they choose, unless that expression directly causes somebody harm. Very, very limited examples of what you can't say. The example we always use is you can't walk into a movie theater and yell fire if there is no fire, because then people run out very quickly and maybe somebody gets hurt. But in almost every other case, we believe that people should be able to express themselves, even controversially. They should be able to say things that we disagree with, and that vigorous debate between lots of people who disagree ultimately ends up with the best understanding of how the world works. So it is our position that people should always be allowed to express themselves freely, and that the censorship of means of communication like Facebook or other forums on the internet is a bad thing. You should be able to you should be allowed to use these websites like Facebook to express yourself. The United States does not censor the internet, and that's as clear as I can.
Policy. I will say there are technologies out there that allow you to actually put your Facebook on a VPN and actually show up in other places. Because even when China was closed down, or still is closed down for Facebook, there are a lot of people in China on Facebook.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Do you know why the Chinese government tries to stop their citizens using Facebook or Google?
I mean, so, we work on the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. It's difficult for us to comment on China. I think if you want to know why China does something, you should go talk to the Chinese embassy.
Very well said. Other questions?